There comes a moment in life, sometimes in the dead of night, sometimes in the middle of a crowded room, when an unsettling question creeps into our mind. What is the point of all of this? We chase success, we accumulate wealth, we build reputations, but for what? Why do we exist? For most of us, these thoughts are fleeting. We push them aside, drowning them out with distractions, social media, work, entertainment. But what if you couldn't ignore the question? What if you had everything, money, fame, influence, and still felt utterly lost? This was the reality of Lev Tolstoy, one of the greatest writers of all time. In the 1870s, after achieving worldwide fame with novels like War and Peace and Anna Karenina, Tolstoy had everything society tells us we should desire. Yet, he found himself standing at the edge of a mental abyss, questioning whether life was worth living at all. Why? Because success hadn't answered the fundamental question: what is the meaning of life? The crisis that shook a genius. Tolstoy's crisis wasn't just a passing thought, it consumed him. In his own words, "My question was the simplest of questions lying in the soul of every person, from a foolish child to the wisest elder. It was, what will come of what I do today, or tomorrow? What will come of my whole life?" He searched for answers in philosophy, science, and religion. He studied the greatest minds in history. But no matter where he looked, he found nothing that could justify existence itself. His despair deepened. He became convinced that life was meaningless. Thoughts of suicide plagued him. Imagine that. A man who had everything, talent, recognition, wealth, family, was ready to give it all up because he saw no point in living. But here's what makes Tolstoy's story extraordinary. He didn't give up. Instead, he embarked on a journey, a ruthless, relentless quest to solve the meaning of life. What he discovered not only changed his life, it has the power to change yours too. The question that you must answer. Tolstoy's crisis isn't unique to him. How many people around you chase success, only to feel empty inside? How many high achievers reach the top, only to wonder why they climbed at all? How many of us live without truly knowing why? If you've ever felt that quiet sense of unease, if you've ever questioned whether you're on the right path, if you've ever wondered whether there's more to life than what you've been told, you are not alone. Tolstoy asked these questions not as a philosopher, but as a man desperate for an answer. And through his struggles, he found something that changed everything. In the next section, we'll dive into how Tolstoy's journey began and the radical path he took to find the truth that a life of success, a mind in crisis. Tolstoy wasn't just successful, he was a legend in his own time. His novels War and Peace and Anna Karenina weren't just books, they were masterpieces that reshaped literature. Critics hailed him as the greatest writer of the century. He had wealth, a loving family, a grand estate, and intellectual prestige. By society standards, he had won at life. But none of it mattered. Imagine reaching the pinnacle of success, only to realize it means nothing. This wasn't just a vague feeling of boredom or dissatisfaction. It was an all-consuming existential despair. He described it as a dark cloud that followed him everywhere. He wrote, "My life came to a stop. I could breathe, eat, drink, sleep, but there was no life in me because there was no desires whose satisfaction I could consider reasonable. If I desired anything, I knew in advance that when I had satisfied my desire, there would be nothing left of it. Life had no meaning. Life was impossible." He even removed ropes from his house so he wouldn't be tempted to hang himself. He stopped hunting because he feared he might use the gun on himself. This wasn't just a midlife crisis. It was a full-blown existential collapse. The intellectual dead ends. Desperate for answers, Tolstoy turned to philosophy and science. If the greatest minds in history had pondered life's meaning, surely they had answers, right? He studied Socrates, Buddha, Schopenhauer, Kant, and Nietzsche, all the giants of philosophy. He explored biology, psychology, and the natural sciences, hoping they could provide meaning through logic and reason. But the more he read, the worse it got. Science told him that life was just a series of chemical reactions. Philosophy gave him endless debates, but no clear answers. Reason told him that everything would eventually vanish, including himself. Each answer led to the same conclusion. Everything we do, everything we build, everything we are, will one day be dust. No amount of success, love, or happiness could change that. And if that was the case, why live at all? Tolstoy wasn't just searching for a personal answer. He wanted the answer, the universal truth that could justify existence itself. And he wasn't willing to settle for comforting illusions. The 4 possible ways to face life's meaninglessness. At this point, Tolstoy categorized humanity into 4 groups based on how they deal with the apparent meaninglessness of life. Ignorance. The majority of people don't think about the question at all. They're too busy with work, entertainment, and daily life. Epicureanism. Some embrace pleasure and distraction. If life has no ultimate meaning, why not enjoy it while it lasts? Strength and suicide. The bravest individuals, according to Tolstoy, recognize life's meaninglessness and choose to end it. Weakness and despair. Others, like himself at the time, see the truth but lack the courage to act on it. They live in a state of inner suffering. Tolstoy realized he had fallen into the 4th category, a man fully aware of life's apparent absurdity but too terrified to end it. But then, something changed. As he reached the lowest point of his despair, he noticed something shocking, something that would completely change his understanding of life's purpose. What was it? A truth that eluded the intellectuals. Tolstoy had examined science, philosophy, and reason, yet none provided a satisfying answer to the meaning of life. The more he searched through the ideas of history's greatest minds, the deeper his despair became. But then, something unexpected happened. He noticed that ordinary people, the peasants, the farmers, the uneducated masses, were not suffering from existential dread like he was. They lived difficult lives, filled with hardship and struggle. Yet they carried on with a sense of purpose. How could people with so little, who never studied philosophy, who never read the great works of history, live without the crippling anxiety that tormented him? This realization struck him like lightning. He had been searching for answers among the intellectual elite when the real answer had been in front of him all along. Faith, the missing element in his search. Tolstoy observed that the common people had something he lacked: faith. Not blind, dogmatic belief, but a deep, intuitive connection to life's purpose. They didn't need endless philosophical debates or scientific analysis. Their faith provided them with something Tolstoy had lost, a reason to keep going. At first, this realization angered him. Was faith just a crutch for those who couldn't handle reality? But then he had to ask himself, if the most educated intellectual minds found only despair, and the simplest people found meaning, who was actually wiser? But then he had to ask himself, if the most educated intellectual minds found only despair, and the simplest people found meaning, who was actually wiser? He began to explore religious and spiritual traditions, not from a place of skepticism, but from genuine curiosity. And in doing so, he started to uncover something profound: the universal patterns of meaning. Tolstoy realized that every major spiritual tradition, whether Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, or Hinduism, pointed towards similar truths. They all emphasized the importance of humility. The ego seeks power and control, but true wisdom comes from surrender. The value of service, meaning isn't found in selfish pursuits, but in giving to others. The idea that life isn't about individual gratification, it's about something bigger than oneself. The intellectual elite were too busy analyzing and dissecting meaning to ever truly experience it. But the common people, who lived by faith, love, and service, had something that no philosophy book could ever teach. They had peace. Tolstoy realized that meaning isn't found in thinking, it's found in living. And the reason so many intellectuals suffered was because they were trying to solve life as if it were a problem, rather than experiencing it as a journey. A new perspective on life. Tolstoy's entire worldview shifted. He abandoned the belief that meaning could be proven through logic and reason alone. Instead, he embraced something far deeper: a life of simplicity, humility, and connection to something greater than himself. He wrote, "Faith is the knowledge of the meaning of human life, in consequence of which man does not destroy himself, but lives. Faith is the force of life. If a man lives, he believes in something." Tolstoy had spent years in torment, searching for an answer through the greatest minds in history, only to find that the answer had been in front of him all along. Meaning wasn't something that needed to be intellectually dissected. Meaning was something that had to be lived. The breaking point: a life of wealth versus a life of meaning. Tolstoy was no ordinary man. By the time of his revelation, he was one of Russia's most celebrated writers, a man of immense wealth, status, and literary influence. His works were read across Europe, and he was surrounded by nobility, scholars, and intellectuals. Yet, despite having everything society told him would bring happiness, he was drowning in despair. Now he understood why. His life had been built on external achievements, but true meaning comes from something deeper: faith, humility, and service. But knowing this truth was one thing. Living it was another. He realized he had two choices: One, continue the life he had built, one of wealth, fame, and intellectual pursuits, but remain spiritually empty. 2. Radically transform his life to align with his newfound understanding of meaning. For Tolstoy, the choice became clear. He had to live his truth, no matter the cost. The decision that shocked the world. What happened next stunned everyone around him. Tolstoy renounced his wealth, rejected his aristocratic lifestyle, and abandoned the privileges of high society. He dressed like a peasant, worked in the fields, and embraced a life of simplicity. He started following the ethics of Jesus, not in a religious, institutional sense, but in a radical, practical way. He believed that true faith wasn't about rituals or doctrine, but about living a life of love, service, and humility. To the elites, he looked insane. His wife, his friends, and even fellow intellectuals were horrified. Why would a man of his stature throw everything away? But Tolstoy didn't see it that way. He wasn't losing anything, he was finally free. For the first time in his life, he felt aligned with something real. His new philosophy, Tolstoyanism. Tolstoy's transformation wasn't just personal, it became a movement. His radical beliefs gave birth to a philosophy now known as Tolstoyanism, centered on these principles. Nonviolence, he rejected all forms of war and oppression. Simple living, wealth and materialism corrupt the soul. Truth over tradition, institutions, including religious ones, often distort true faith. Love and service, meaning is found in helping others, not in status or success. His ideas were so powerful that they later influenced figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. In fact, Gandhi himself once wrote, Tolstoy's book, The Kingdom of God is Within You, left an abiding impression on me. Before reading it, I was aware of the fact that nonviolence was a part of all religious thought, but Tolstoy's writings gave it a deeper meaning. Tolstoy had not only found meaning, he had given the world a blueprint for it, the price of living by his truth. But living by these principles came at a great cost. The Russian Orthodox Church excommunicated him. His aristocratic peers mocked and abandoned him. His own family, especially his wife, resented his decisions. His wife, Sophia, had spent decades supporting his career. She had copied his manuscripts by hand, raised his children, and managed his estates. But now she felt betrayed. She begged him to reconsider. She couldn't understand why a man who had everything would willingly give it all away. The tension between them grew unbearable. Tolstoy's final years were filled with conflict, both personal and societal. But he never wavered. To him, this was the price of truth, and he was willing to pay it. At the age of 82, Tolstoy made one last radical decision. He left his home forever, walking away from his family, his estate, and all material possessions. He set out on a journey, hoping to live his remaining days in pure simplicity and service. But fate had other plans. While traveling by train, he fell gravely ill. He was taken to a remote railway station in a small town called Astapovo. There, in a tiny, poorly lit stationmaster's house, one of the greatest minds in history took his last breath. He had died as he had lived his final years, a man who had given up everything to find something greater. And now, over a century later, his search for meaning still challenges us. The timeless lessons of Tolstoy, what his search for meaning teaches us. Lesson 1. External success means nothing without internal meaning. Tolstoy had it all, wealth, fame, artistic mastery. But none of it gave him real fulfillment. How many people today chase money, social status, and success, only to feel empty once they achieve it? Modern psychology supports this. The hedonic treadmill theory suggests that no matter how much we achieve, we quickly return to our baseline level of happiness. Tolstoy realized that meaning isn't found in external achievements, it's an internal process. Reflection. Are you chasing things that truly matter, or just what society tells you to pursue? Lesson 2. The answer to meaning lies in service, not self-obsession. Tolstoy's greatest revelation wasn't just about his own suffering, it was about how to escape it. He found that real meaning comes when we stop focusing solely on ourselves and start contributing to something bigger. Modern psychology confirms this. Studies on eudaimonic happiness show that people who focus on purpose, growth, and helping others experience long-term fulfillment, unlike those who chase short-term pleasure. This is why parents find meaning in raising children, despite the struggles. Volunteers report higher life satisfaction than those who focus only on personal success. People who dedicate their lives to causes bigger than themselves experience a deeper sense of purpose. Tolstoy saw this long before modern science confirmed it. The takeaway: stop asking, what can I take, and start asking, what can I give? Lesson 3. Radical truth requires radical courage. Tolstoy didn't just write about truth, he lived it. And it cost him dearly. He lost his status. He was excommunicated from the church. His own family resented his decisions. But despite all of this, he never compromised his beliefs. This is a lesson that echoes across history. Every revolutionary thinker, Socrates, Galileo, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., faced immense backlash. Why? Because society is built on comfort and conformity. People fear those who challenge their norms. But all great transformations start with someone who refuses to stay silent. Reflection: where in your life are you avoiding truth out of fear? What would happen if you stopped compromising? Lesson 4. Simplicity is the key to spiritual clarity. One of Tolstoy's most shocking decisions was rejecting wealth and status to live a simple life. Why would a man with everything voluntarily give it up? Because he realized that materialism distracts us from true meaning. Modern research backs this up. Minimalism studies show that reducing possessions increases clarity, focus, and life satisfaction. Too many people are drowning in debt for things they don't need, obsessed with upgrading their lifestyles instead of their minds, chasing status symbols instead of inner peace. Tolstoy understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. The less you own, the freer you become. Reflection: what unnecessary distractions are keeping you from finding true clarity in your life? Lesson 5. The search for meaning never ends. Despite all his discoveries, Tolstoy never claimed to have all the answers. Even in his final years, he continued questioning, refining, and challenging his own ideas. This is perhaps the greatest lesson of all. Meaning isn't something you find once and keep forever. It's a lifelong journey. There's no single answer, no ultimate truth that applies to everyone. Instead, it's the ongoing process of seeking, questioning, and growing that makes life meaningful. Reflection: are you willing to embrace the journey, even if it never leads to a final destination? Final thoughts: what will you choose? Tolstoy's life teaches us that meaning isn't given, it's created. The real question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue chasing things that leave you empty? Will you dare to seek deeper truth, even if it means discomfort? Will you align your life with something greater than yourself? The answer isn't in any book, philosophy, or religion. It's in the choices you make every single day. Now, I leave you with a final question. If you died today, could you say you truly live a life of meaning? Because Tolstoy asked himself that question, and it changed everything. If this deep dive into Tolstoy's search for meaning resonated with you, don't let the conversation end here. Comment below what you think is the meaning of life. Have you ever experienced a crisis like Tolstoy's? And if you enjoy thought-provoking content on philosophy, psychology, and self-discovery, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We explore ideas that challenge the way you see the world. Also, if you found this video valuable, give it a like. It really helps spread these ideas to more people who might need them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.